what's going on, everyone? I'm sitting beside Matt Johnson right now here at Drumeo. Thanks for coming out, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, Matt, you have a lot of experience recording. You've been doing this for quite a while, and you've learned a lot in terms of what sounds good on a kit. And what I want to do is I want to get you to talk a little bit about the differences between all the different options out there for muffling a kit. Because we all know there's tape, there's like moon gel and drum gum, and there's rings, and there's things like throwing a towel on your snare. But you say that there's a specific purpose for each one.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, even within tape, if you're just talking about tape, there's more than 5 ways of just using tape. Mm-hmm. And you're going to get multiple effects, depending on which one or multiples that you choose of ways of using tape. You take the wide open drum like this. So, I mean, one of the main things you're going to notice about that is you've got a long decay. And the long decay might not be useful, particularly maybe at a faster tempo, let's say, mm-hmm. where the drum's not done with its decay by the time you're hitting the next one.
Yeah.
Tape, you could slap some tape on here, right? And it's not going to have a huge effect, but you'd hear that it does have some effect. All right, now I just put the tape straight on there. There's also the option of making loops. And loops are going to put the same amount of tape on the drum with far less points of contact. So that's a wicking form. It's basically just the vibration of the tape loop that isn't touching the head. That vibration wicks off some of the vibration of the head into the air. That to me is a preferred method a lot of times with tape. One of the things that happens is when you apply more tape directly to the head, where that tape is contacting the head at every point of its length, you're adding more weight to the head. And when you add more weight to the head, mm-hmm. literally to the head, like it's on the head, touching the head, you're going to tend to cause the drum to also ring for a long time, but maybe at a lower fundamental pitch.
Mm. Gotcha.
So sometimes I find that making the loop preserves a little bit more of the drum's initial pitch and even frequency sort of like spread, but it just seems to dampen evenly across all those frequencies, and it seems to dampen across all those frequencies. Maybe it just leads to a slightly different kind of transient or attack and a slightly shorter decay.
Awesome. So whenever you do use tape, you're usually putting them in a loop.
Yeah, and also if you want to change the frequency in a way, I think, this is intuitive, but if you want to change the frequency at which the tape is affecting the head mm-hmm. and the sound of the drum, you can place a tiny length of tape on top of the loop. So it's sticky side to sticky side. Now at this minute amount of muffling, you might not be able to tell the difference, but that move, that thickening of like the top layer of the tape,
yeah, is
also going to change the way that it wiggles.
Got it.
Because that's what's happening when you make the loops, and the loops are, you have this suspended length of tape. I always put the side where the tape is attached to itself. I always put that down, and then this lighter side up, and then I might put another length of it on top. And of course, that's just wiggling like that. And that wiggling is drawing vibration off the head without touching the head. That's the awesome thing about loops.
Love it. Okay, so that's tape, which is an option that almost most drummers have available to them. And it's one that I've always used when I'm in a bind, you guys have some tape.
Yeah.
What about something else like moon gel or drum tack, something like that, which is something that you usually go and buy at the store or something like that? How do those affect the sound?
That once again, these are all like, it's intuitive, and they can kind of mimic each other in the way that they affect the sound. The moon gel is, something I use very little moon gel, mm-hmm. But I do use it. The weight of it, the thickness of it, actually does seem to have a different kind of. It does seem to have a different kind of effect in terms of the EQ of the drum.
Okay.
And also, one of the main things that I really like about these is tape loops can get in the way of your sticks. So like that, the fact that I have a loop on my snare drum means that my stick could quite possibly end up going through there if I reach for the tom.
Yeah.
And it get that's not going to happen with one of these. So one of the things that this is good for is moving in closer into the middle of the head. So once I get my muffling regimen kind of set for a song or for whatever, my gig or my vibe or whatever, I won't be moving these tape loops usually into the head because they really can affect the playing surface. So a lot of times I'll start throwing these around and be like, how's it sound right there? Like if I move this, if I take two of these things in roughly the same distance from the rim, okay, right? That's quite a strong level of muffling. If I move them toward the rim quite a lot, that's significantly more open. You can also try to follow some type of intuitive principles maybe, but principles of geometry where you can try moving them apart in maybe like a 1/3 ratio around the drum. You'll hear different notes come out of it. So these are just really slap on at the last minute, intuitive, like see how it affects the frequency, see if you like it, see how it affects the length of the decay, or see how it affects the transient. These are great. They don't get in the way of the stick.
Very cool. And then you also mentioned that you sometimes throw your own wallet on the snare. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that reminds me of like Harvey Mason. You know, like Harvey Mason, or like, you know, pocket players from more known for their work, you know, in the 70s. This is a very aggressive form of muffling. So oftentimes you're going to want to take your wallet and tape it across the rim. Not onto the head, just tape it from the top of the wallet across onto the rim to hold it on. Because a lot of times you think you're not going to hit that hard and you thwack that wallet right off. It goes flying off in the middle of the gig. Now this is very much of a contact form of muffling. Like I don't have the option really anytime soon to suspend this off the head like this so it, you know, so the vibration wicks off into the wallet. It just sits there and it just kind of oppresses the head. It depresses and oppresses the head. That's very aggressive. And having a certain amount of aggressive muffling is good.
Yeah.
Because it's really, really about strongly and strictly limiting the vibration.
Okay, so the weight matters, the size of the wallet I would imagine matters, and where you're placing it matters.
Yeah, and especially like you've got a lot of cash in there. Yeah. You know you're doing something right if you muffle, you know, your snare with your wallet and it has a lot of cash in it.
There you go. Fortunately, that's not always the case with drummers, but
exactly.
What about a shirt? You know, you've used this before a couple times in the studio, I'd imagine.
Yeah, the shirt is amazing. Okay, now what you want to do is well, this is what I want to do. I take the sheerest shirt that I can. It's almost like cheesecloth. All right, and you can see through that. It's very transparent, very little fabric, and then I'll just place that over the top. This has look. It has an awesome effect sometimes because really when you look at the sonic spaces that you're playing in, they in fact are they're like drums. I mean, the room itself is like a drum. It's like a meta drum. It's a larger drum, and you are playing that drum. And especially when your sound is mingling with the sounds of other musicians, which is, you know, that's called a gig. You know, sometimes approaches like this will have effects that I can't describe because they're too complex, but they make everything go really well.
Okay.
Now I already like that a lot.
Yeah.
Just the surface of the head itself, in order for it to express itself, in order for it to express vibration, all of the vibration of the head literally has to go through a filter, the filter of the cloth. And the cloth is touching the head and interacting with the head and literally dampening it by physical contact. So far, that's my favorite sound that we've made in terms of a single muffling approach.
Got it. And it's something that you can easily, you know, grab if you have an extra shirt laying around or even a towel or something like that.
Yeah, towels are so thick usually.
Right.
And towels, because the surface area of a towel is designed to be maximal for absorbing moisture, it's insane how oppressive a towel can be on something. It can be cool, but it's rare that I would use a towel over the head. I might bundle up a towel and stick it over in the corner and use it in a similar way to like a burrito sitting on. And literally, you could put a burrito. You go buy a burrito and stick it, and it would work. But it's like that would be similar to having like a burrito on the side of your.
Sure.
But your lunch is ready to go.
There you go. Okay, let's talk about the last option, which has been around forever, and these are drum rings.
Yeah.
You want to talk about those?
Yeah, the rings are great. Now, one of the things I do a lot of times, I think we counted 12.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll take rings of different sizes and from different makers. You see these are thinner, maybe inch. These are 2 inches. And I'll just kind of arrange them. Sometimes I'll use these 1-inchers on the bottom. And so they only contact the head 1 inch into it, and then they cease to contact the head. And then I might float some of these other ones over the top. So if I take 3 or 4 1-inch rings, not saying that I do this, I might not be at all scientific about this, but let's say I take 3 1-inch rings, 1-inch wide rings, and then I place all the 2-inch rings over the top of that, you can see how there would be this point on the inside of the 1-inch rings where the larger rings are not really contacting the head as much. I really like that sound. Okay. And then if I reverse that, this might seem subtle right now. It might not even be perceptible. But sometimes in the context of a larger mix or something like that, this move, taking the 1-inch rings and putting them on top so that now the 2-inch rings are contacting the head completely, and then these just float on the top. It's almost indistinguishable, the difference between that, and that's fine. Maybe you have no intention of thinking about minutia like that. Just remember, though, that is a choice, and that sometimes that choice can make a tiny difference that actually kind of puts you over the bar. This dude right here, big fat drum, what is that called?
Big fat snare drum.
Big fat snare drum.
Yeah.
These are great. Okay, so I tend to like the one that has nothing in the middle. Because as I was saying before, the more contact muffling that you put onto the head, even though you're muffling, sometimes you're not decreasing the length of the decay. You're just more dropping the fundamental, and you might be drying the drum up a bit, and of course, that's why I like to leave the middle very thin. I like the middle of the head to be very thin with nothing on it. So I'll take the big fat snare drum, stick that on there, right? I love that sound. You put these on there too. That's starting to get into a zone that I like. Sometimes I will have my wallet on there. Now you'll hear that. Now you'll hear the low end starts coming out. I mean, I just heard the low. I just heard the low end. I heard the frequency band of the snare drum start to go and focus more towards the lower mids. I'm hearing the throat of the drum. And a lot of times in modern music that's incredibly dense with processing, that's what reaches through. It isn't some kind of volume a lot of times, a lot of high end, although that can work too. I'm just saying a lot of times what reaches people in their chest is the throat or the heart sound of the drum, the wood sound. Sometimes you need to shave off that other stuff a little bit to focus the sound of the drum. So these muffling options in concert with each other, that's pretty much always what I'm doing.
No doubt.
I'm always mixing up. And you can imagine when you think about just mathematically the different combination possibilities between everything we just talked about, between direct application, loops, any combination of these wallets and gels, you've got almost infinite possibilities.
Yeah. Well, it's so cool to hear on a deeper level. And thank you for this, because I know for me, when a lot of times when I wanted to muffle my drum or I heard an overtone, I would just throw something on it, whether it be tape or gum, just to fight those overtones. I wasn't thinking about it on that level that you were just describing it. And there's so many options out there for you guys to try, and there's different reasonings why you should try each one of them. So experiment, have some fun with it, and see what kind of sounds you can get from it. Because, like you mentioned, it goes a little bit deeper than just cutting out the overtones sometimes.
Absolutely. You know, and once you've cut out the overtones, one of the problems with cutting out overtones is that you lose that feeling of space. Like you get the transient, you get the attack, and then it's very dry. And that can make a drummer feel really exposed and naked. Like that. Now, in traditionally, a lot of the ways that you get length of decay out of a drum was by opening up the head. But fortunately, nowadays, you've got these really dynamic snare strainers, and you have different options for the actual width of your snares on the bottom. So a lot of times, if I want length out of my snare drum, I just loosen the snares. Which makes the sound man happy out front a lot of times, because you still get a controlled top head, but then you can get that feeling of reverb off the bottom head.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's great information. And if you guys like that information that Matt's given here, please check him out more at Drumeo.com. We did a whole hour-long live lesson with him on how to be a good sounding drummer and a whole course on tightening up your groove. So we have a lot more at Drumeo.com. Take these tips to your kit, and we'll see you online.